My name is Kareem Iskander. I'm a lead technical advocate here at Cisco Learning and Certification, and you're here because we're going to talk about Linux for network engineers. Um, First of all, can you guys hear me in the back? Are we good? Okay. So just show of hands, who here has used Linux throughout their room? Okay. So I'm going to disappoint you for the first couple of slides because this should not be something new. Okay, but stick around. We'll talk about how you can leverage it, especially when you're going into SSH for your devices, for your sandboxes, when you're automation. But here's what we're going to cover. We're going to cover the basics of Linux. What are the essential distributions that we have? And then something that we should all know, which is navigation throughout the Linux CLI, like how to get into the different directories, how to create a new file, especially as you're writing scripts and you're writing code, you don't want to actually have to go out to do this via the UI. You can, or the OS itself, you can simply use the CLI to do the simple tasks. So we're going to go through that. And then we're going to look at how we can work with directories, editing files. We're going to look, I'm going to put you through a bit of pain and suffering. So we're going to look at VI and how to edit. And so honestly, if you're familiar with all of this, this might be just a refresher. And then any additional useful commands and tips that you can do after this session. What I'd like to point out, though, is part of the network automation learning path that we have in Cisco U talks about more in depth than what I'm showing you here today on how to leverage Linux as a network engineer for automation. Okay, and so sign up, like Lacey said, sign up for early access, use the opportunity to get into the platform and use these learning paths that are free of charge for you before we start charging you. So use that to your advantage. Okay, so if we look at Linux distributions, we have so many flavors, and there's so many out there. You got Red Hat, Fedora, Linux, Debian, Ubuntu, which is my favorite, CentOS. They all have common OS at the end of the day. They all use the same thing from commands and CLI, but some of them have a major differentiator, and this is essentially comes down to how you manage your packaging. Right, so in the Fedora world, for instance, or the Red Hat, you use yum yum install to set up your packages that you need for your Linux, as opposed to Ubuntu, you do apt-get, and you simply go in apt-get and maybe install Python 3 or apt-get and set up a service that you need to run on your box, right? And there's a lot of services out there and packages, and you can look at the package manager apt-get itself or yum to see how to execute and set up these. Now, when we look at Linux, and let's do this together. So I'm using a Mac. It's Linux-based, so we could do this together. I have a directory, and within this directory, obviously I was doing a session around deploying Terraform, using Kubernetes, deploying Kubernetes using Terraform. But within this, let's assume within this directory, I want to navigate. I'm going to go out here. So I want to navigate one of the directories that I have. I have a directory called Vault. In order to do so, you use the change directory command, cd, and then you simply go to, let's go to Vault here. And this, notice how my prompt has changed into that. If I want to go out one, cd ... will take me back out to the directory, or simply cd to navigate to the home directory. Now, another option you could do is to navigate to an actual absolute directory. And so let's say I know I'm going to cd to my users, and I think desktop, my home directory, followed by my desktop. So this is my specific directory that I can navigate to, and cd would allow me to do so. So pretty straightforward. That you can see here is what I have on my desktop. So this is your basic navigation. It comes in handy, especially if you're running between scripts and you're trying to see what happened. You have a folder that you have a library of a Python library that you've built, and you want to copy it over to a new directory. It's easier to navigate and know how to do the cd. It's pretty straightforward. I think pretty much all of us have done this at some point, especially if you're a Mac user, right? All right, so another useful, and I actually, it took me, when I started my my network automation journey, it took me a bit to get used to this, because before that I didn't actually really had to use Linux at all, right? Linux comes in handy, especially if you're running a Mac and your automation, throughout your automation journey, because you can easily run Ansible, you can easily execute Python scripts. So it's my flavor that I like to leverage for all of my the OS flavor that I like to leverage for my OS throughout automation. But let's look at the basically working with directories themselves. So within my fault, I'm gonna, on my desktop, I'm gonna go ahead and create a new directory. So using the command make dir, that would allow me to create a Cisco U directory on my desktop. Now I can navigate to that directory that I've just created, and I can start scripting. But I don't want to have to actually go and pull my file system and create a Python file there. So I can simply do touch, and I'm going to write main.py, which is my first Python file. So what touch does is actually creates an empty, it touches that file and it creates it for us. And you notice here I have it. At this point, I can actually start scripting. So I can do, how do I actually get into that file to start scripting? So I can actually use some of the inline and CLI editors, or I can, if you'd like to go out and use an IDE, for instance, for your Python project, you can simply do that as well. But if we look at this, I can actually go in and say, okay, I'm going to use something like Nano and open up my PI. Now, I've actually, in the CLI on Linux here, I've opened up my main.py file, and I can start scripting, right? Import JSON, I don't know, do list is equal to that, instantiate a list, and then I can do a print statement, hello world, right? Now, with Nano itself, you can simply say, I want to exit, Control X, yes, enter. That would actually save my script that I've done. So you notice how I've done everything from within the CLI for Linux, right? I didn't have to go out there. I didn't have to, it's pretty efficient. And so if I cat, what? No, I need the two. So if I do cat main.py, you guys can see the Python script that I wrote. If I'm in luck, this might run. Sure. You guys just let me know if I'm doing too low in the back so you can hear me. But this, I can still write my Python, so obviously this ran. So you can see how rapidly it is to do this. Now, if I'm in the directory and I'm looking to just say, hey, I want to remove this. So I want to get rid of that Cisco U directory. I messed up. This is not the right location for it or whatever. So I can simply get out of this by using cd ... and say rm minus rf, which actually would remove the directory for me, followed by Cisco U, which is my directory name. And if I try to get into it here, it does not exist. Okay? Does that make sense? It's pretty straightforward. Is this new to anybody? No? Okay. See, I told you I was going to disappoint you the first two slides. All right, so we don't need to go through copying file 1 to file 2. So you leverage CP for this. We all know what ls is, ls minus al, to include hidden and details, especially if you're, this is important. Like I know in a cloud project, in an automation project that I was doing in cloud, you want to be able to see these hidden SSH folders so you can actually access your token and update the tokens, right? So it's important to know the difference between ls and ls minus al, and then copying files over. All right. So the fun part is I used Nano before, which was easy. This is what I like to use. Actually, if I'm writing a project, I will actually use a real IDE and not CLI, but sometimes we need rapid development. And so VI is one of my favorites that you can use within CLI itself. Who's like me enjoys pain and suffering? Yeah? Okay, so let's let's go through scripting with VI. It comes built in within your instance of Linux, so you don't have to set up or install anything. And the way you basically access it, I'm going to actually make a new file here. We're going to write the same hello world using VI. So we'll do VI main.py. This is actually going to create the Python file and open it in our editor itself. When you first launch VI, you get into it, you're not in edit mode. So you actually have to get into edit mode by pressing I or insert, and you get that little prompt at the bottom that allows you to start running. Many of us have done this when I first started, where I'm trying to type and all I hear is the feedback from my keyboard saying, no, you can't type anymore here, right? So if you get that, you have not inserted. So when you get the insert, that's when you start typing in VI. And again, I can do my import JSON, I can do my print statement. Now, saving is the hardest part too. You can't save while you're inserting. So you have to get out of it and then save. So to get out of the insert state, you simply click escape, and my insert prom is gone at this point. And I can simply go, okay, now I have two choices. I can forget and close the terminal and I'm screwed, or I can actually save it. So in order to save, you have to actually do colon followed by write Q. And that actually writes it and saves it. And if I Python 3 main.py, it actually works, right? And so let's go back in VI and show you how to actually quit without saving. So I'm going to open main.py again, and then let's say I messed it up. You know, my cat got on my keyboard, and I need to get out of here. Again, if you notice the prompt, I'm in insert mode, so I have to escape, but then I can simply do quit Q exclamation mark, and that's going to quit without exiting. I still have my code in there without making any changes. Okay, so this is actually really useful, especially if you're, like you've already spent hours and hours on your automation script, and you have a bunch of files that you don't need to open the project in your IDE to edit. You can simply use something like Nano or VI to edit that one-liner. Some people actually, and in my team, my organization, would actually use VI for the entire automation project. So, everybody has different opinions about things. So I know it's funny because I was talking to my buddy Quinn Schneider, who has a bunch of sessions here, and he's a huge Vim fan, and he actually solely does Vim, and that's it. So, again, it's everybody has their own opinion about this. All right. So editing. Now, the other thing is that we're going to find ourselves doing as we're working through automation is accessing some type of infrastructure. In this case, we want to be able to access a sandbox, and we have this DevNet sandbox. Don't worry, username and password is safe to share. This is public information. So if you want access to an XC box, you can go out to the DevNet sandbox and use it, or you can just copy this. It's here for you. But let's say I want to be able to copy the keys from the device to my host to allow that connection. One of the commands that we have built in within Linux is ssh-copy-id followed by the host itself that we're connecting to. And now what's going to do is going to actually copy the SSH key into my local machine. The other thing that's really useful, especially if I'm playing in infrastructure, is being able to save whatever happens in SSH. So when we get into the device, we don't have access to the prompt that gets there, right? You can't change anything in it. You can't see what's going on, and it scrolls super fast. Sometimes you want to be able to output that to a file on your local machine to see what the hell is happening with it, right? Especially if I'm doing like show running config and I want to debug that running config on a device. So one useful command that I found useful I wanted to share with you guys is being able to tee it up to an output file to see what's going on. And so let's go ahead and do that together. I'm going to go ahead and first of all show you how to copy this. So I have the connection, SSH copy ID, followed by my sandbox connection. My username is developer in this case, and this is the sandbox that I'm connecting to. So it's going to go out there and say, okay, I'm connected to the source. I'm going to attempt to log in so I can get the key and download it. So it found one key here to be installed. And then soon it's going to prompt me for my password. So if I go here, this is my password. So you can see it went out there and basically downloaded that key. If I ls-al on this, should be here somewhere. I don't see it, but it's here somewhere. Trust me. The next thing is let's go ahead and output, but I'm actually make dir, so I'm not looking for things. So let's go ahead and let's SSH into that device. Let's do show run and output that to a file on my local machine so I can see what's going on with it. So I'm going to leverage my SSH user device followed by the T command to file name. So I can go ahead and do this SSH, developer at my sandbox itself. Oh, sorry, I forgot to do the T. T to output.txt. Let's do that. Log into it. So I'm in the box. Everything at this point that's happening on the host itself is going to be outputted to that txt file I've identified. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, show run in this case. You can see it's pretty. I mean, I could somewhat see all of this, but sometimes it's helpful to have that output in a file. So if I exit here and you can see how useful it is to actually get the running config on our local machine without having to copy and paste from the terminal itself. Okay, and this would live for the entire session, right? So as long as you have the SSH session connected, whatever commands that you want to capture, it's going to actually output it straight into the file. Okay, so I know I went through a lot. It shouldn't be anything of too surprising. I wanted to give you just a simple taste of what you will get in our learning path. So if you want to dig deeper in Linux, and if this is something that you wanted to master, there's a lot more information out there. Get into Cisco U, get into the network automation, read about the Linux for network engineers, and it's going to help you tremendously. I hope you enjoyed this Linux refresher. Thank you for your time, and let's do the raffle. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.